child was spotted working in a supplies facility. Cameras are rolling, Wilbys is calling, shareholders are watching, and I, as a chief sustainability officer of City Confectionery, have to respond. As the CSO, I was responsible for the representing City Confectionery's sustainability portion. My role required me to defend and investigate supply chain ethics, breach business interests with ethical obligations, and advise the board on ESG risk and response strategy. On paper, that sounds structured. In practice, I think it was the most complex balancing act I ever faced. I had to respond to Bilby's investigate team without all the facts, and I had to uphold UN SDG and ILO child labor standards. This simulation taught me things I didn't expect to learn. My experience of this role play leads me to believe that the moral courage is not something you simply have. It is something you practice under pressure when the stakes are real. Kohlberg's post-conventional moral reasoning resonated deeply with me here. It's easy to hold ethical position in a lecture theater. It's much harder when someone is questioning your judgment in front of a room. I remember the moment I chose to recommend conditional continuation of the partnership rather than immediate termination. It was the hardest call, but I am convinced it was the right one because suddenly cutting the supplier would have caused more harm. Let me be honest about the challenges because I find this part of the reflection the most valuable. The first was balancing business against ethics. Freeman's stakeholders theory tells us businesses must serve all stakeholders, but Friedman's shareholder primacy was pulling in the opposite direction. For me, this tension was very difficult to resolve because both portions had merit, and I had to choose a path that honored both rather than sacrificing one for the other. The second challenge was defending city's portion without complete information. I was responding to allegation in real time. The risk of appearing defensive rather than genuinely transparent was something I find worrying even now. Because transparency isn't just about what you say, it's about how you say it and what you are willing to admit you don't yet know. The third and perhaps the most surprising was the cultural context gap. Bilby's team applied Australian standards to a Southeast Asian reality. I feel that this prejudice, although well intentioned, may misunderstand the real issue. In Southeast Asia, poverty affects while child labor exists. One of the most profound shifts in my thinking concerns cultural awareness. How states' culture dimensions framework became a lens I couldn't unsee. Will apply Australian standards to SE Asia and must distinguish universal rights from culturally relative norms. According to Maslow hierarchy in context, where in poverty children working fulfills survival and safety needs. This demands empathy before judgment. Moreover, collective SE Asian culture views family labor through a fundamental different ethical lens than individualist Western cultures. I also discovered something about confirmation bias, where Kahneman's system one fast thinking is a trap we all fall into. This experience forced me into system two, where slow, deliberate, empathy driven analysis. When I faced this ethical dilemma, I didn't rely on instinct alone. I apply a multi framework approach. Utilitarianism from Bentham and Mill asked me what decision produce greatest good for the greatest number, not just for cities shareholders, but for children, families, suppliers, and the broader community. Kantian deontology reminded me treat children as ends, never as means. And I agree with Freeman when he argues that sustainable business must serve all stakeholders. Stakeholder impacts are children and families. The priority is to give immediate protection and community investment. Secondly, CT conventionally requires shift ethical action to preserve trust. Moreover, Wilby's health snack brand damage in Australian health market. Last but not least, suppliers need pathway to compliance rather than sudden contract termination. In long-term shareholders, ESG aligned business model sustains value creation. So where do I go from here? I believe the most important takeaway is this. Ethics is not a subject I study once. It is a muscle I build, stretch, and sometimes tear, and then rebuild stronger. In my future career, I am committed to applying these frameworks daily, not just in a CSO roles, but in any management position. I will advocate for transparent supply chains, for blockchain traceability, for mandatory ESG disclosure, and more than anything, I will invest in culture competence. Before entering any global partnership, I will ask, do I truly understand the context I am walking into? I hope to be the kind of leader who doesn't wait for a crisis to engage stakeholders. First key recommendation is compliances and governance, where can implement mandatory tier 2 out of 3 supplier audits. According to transformational leadership, it is inspire ethical change. Secondly, social impact, where can launch community investment program. According to utilitarianism, it's to maximize social well-being. Lastly, strategic partnership with bill base. Conditional partnership continuation with bill base, where the stakeholder theory comes in, share value over short term profit. This role play was more than a simulation, it was a mirror. It showed me the tension between profit and principle. It tested my ability to hold firm under scrutiny, and it gave me a genuine empathy for the human beings behind every supply chain. Thank you.